Unremarkable. That's what a lot of people categorize the Order 1886 as. To these people, the momentum it carries in its presentation cannot overcome the steep mountain it tries to climb. To others, the perfect descriptor is instead the word failure. Some believe that the game is so unremarkable that its faults completely overshadow the experience. It's few and far between that you find someone who would call this game anything like marvelous or wondrous. The people who unequivocally value what the Order does right are rare indeed. Unfortunately, the Order came out during a time where everyone who plays a game feels like they have the critical capacity and the game literacy to understand what it means to make a great game. What this means is that you end up getting a lot of people calling it out for its supposed unoriginality. You get a lot of people who will completely condemn the experience because it doesn't do anything new. Do I value innovation? More than almost anything else in games. But do I believe a lack of innovation allows us to skip from fantastic to terrible? No. A competently made game that hits on all of its current genre trends and not much else can still be a pretty alright game, even a great game. The experience of those that are immersed in games, or even a specific genre, can easily be skewed. They may see something like the Order as boring for not really doing anything new, but someone who has never experienced these sorts of games will find an astonishing amount of new things to enjoy, things that are new to them. Is their playthrough and opinion somehow less valuable because they don't have the same expertise? I don't think so. What this question reveals is that, despite maybe being unoriginal in many ways, a game that uses competent design still uses competent design. Easy, lazy, behind the curve, whatever you want to call it, that still means the game is hitting the correct notes to at least achieve adequacy. With all that said, where does the Order actually stand? Potential spoilers ahead, of course, by the way. Well, to begin, the Order 1886 was developed primarily by Ready at Dawn, published by Sony and released on February 20th, 2015. The game is a third-person shooter in the vein of games like Gears of War. Players find themselves on a linear adventure, will rely primarily on cover for safety, can occasionally find themselves in a QuickTime event, can find audio logs which may expand on the world, and have access to a few tools beyond their guns to help them succeed. One such tool is known as Black Sight, where the player can slow down time and begin auto-targeting enemies for easy kills. The other major tool is the Black Water, which Black Sight comes from. When downed, the player can drink black water from a small flask around their neck, allowing them to heal and get back up. It then takes a while for the flask to fill back up. In execution, these tools aren't terribly different from existing mechanics. Black Sight is basically just another form of bullet time, and using black water is literally just your regular form of healing found in an endless amount of games. Most of your guns are also par for the course. A few types of rifles, pistols, shotguns, grenades, a crossbow, etc. There's some other weapons known as science weapons, but I'll get to those later. Black Sight isn't terribly useful. It works, but encounters are simple enough that it's not needed. Most enemies funnel in from one or two directions at most. And while the AI isn't bad or anything, it isn't designed to adequately protect its head from your bullets. The few times I died without black water to revive me might have been moments where I could have used Black Sight, but there were never any moments where I felt like it was anything close to an indispensable tool, or the perfect thing for the job. The game's structure consists of a lot of just walking around linear sets. It could have done with a little bit less linearity. I don't need choices or super open maps, but having a few extra rooms to open or a split hallway here and there would do a lot for the experience. This actually means there's not a ton of variety, but I didn't mind much because the game doesn't pretend to be more than it is. I never felt the Order was trying to sell me more than what it offered. It actually reminds me of Metal Gear Solid 4 in that way, because I never felt like there was an encounter or a scene that was just there to pad gameplay. It all felt integral to the experience. This may be why the game is so short, is because they respected the player's time. I beat it in just over 6 hours, while balancing the exploration and role-playing the game wanted me to do. I only rushed through environments when the story asked for it. A lot of people use the time it takes to beat this game as a reason to say it's terrible, as if it's ripping you off. But I believe value is purely subjective. What one may believe is worth $60, another may not. A game doesn't objectively fix itself or become more well-designed as the price goes down. It's the same game regardless. What changes is your own personal perception and experience with this design, based on your ideas of value. That being said, while I personally wouldn't have wanted to pay $60 for this game when it was new, it was an experience that I'm glad I had. There are a lot of things to find if you explore a bit in the Order, from ammo to the previously mentioned audio logs to environmental objects. Personally, I don't get why you can pick up objects so often. Many of them feel pointless and are out of place in terms of timing. It breaks immersion if I can stop in the middle of an ongoing assault to look at an old-timey photograph with a message on the back whose font is too fancy to read. Maybe having your character comment on them would have offered up better context. And beyond that, just don't place them in areas where the character shouldn't be stopping to ogle at random things. Moving on, yes, the final boss was essentially the same as the earlier Lycan fight. And yes, it's kind of mechanically restricted in terms of what the player can do. But while I think they should have found another way to present it, it isn't a terrible issue. And no, the fight is not a QuickTime event. Again, the game didn't try to pretend to be something it isn't. Within the context of this game, a more gamified boss would have taken me out of the experience. That being said, this fight should not have been a repeat for the boss of the game. That's what makes it feel a bit anticlimactic and cheap, is that the boss isn't any different from the earlier Lycan fight in anything but aesthetic context. Simply removing the earlier Lycan fight would have helped quite a bit, though people still would have complained that it's basically a QuickTime event. And while they're not totally correct, they're not totally wrong either. The music in this game fits. I can't recall any of it specifically because it's very much implemented like a modern movie soundtrack, in the sense that it seems like it's supposed to stay out of the way. But it does work, using lots of strings that have a very gritty, booming feel. It matches well.
Izzy, can you hear me? Shit.
As good as the graphics are, some things are a little bit immersion breaking. For example, Galahad doesn't have a reflection in glass or mirrors. But for the most part, it's really small things like that, and there are no big glaring issues with the graphics. For now, let's look further into the more major issues the Order struggles with. A rather strange thing about the Order is that most of its biggest issues are small things, but at the same time, a few of them are super commonly avoided pitfalls, which leaves you wondering, if they knew their genre so well that they're making such a faithful cover-based third-person shooter, why did they make these mistakes? To begin, the camera feels too close, because of the black bars that are always on screen. Yes, these bars make it more cinematic, but it's also more difficult to play. The screen feels cramped and claustrophobic because of this choice of crop, particularly when you're doing things like looking down at objects. I would have at least put the HUD elements in that empty space, and this may have been something that they tried and maybe it tested poorly, but with that much wasted space on screen, they should have done something. Beyond that, the visual noise effect is also a bit much. It does give the game a filmic effect, but it's so strong that it destroys a lot of the visual detail in the process. Luckily, photo mode allows you to change this, though it was added in a patch. Turning the noise off shows you how great the game looks without it, and how detailed it actually is. The next issue is a rather strange one. Audio logs are fine. They're super common in shooters these days, and they can be a rather effective way to keep the player moving while still filling them in on important details and such. So why then do they have to completely stop everything in the order? As far as I could find, there's no way to keep an audio log playing while you go back to gameplay. We've established better ways to do this already, and it's amazing to me that they would force you to pause everything to hear an audio log. Yes, it's possible that these could have interfered with other story elements if they placed it too close to where a character dialogue starts or something, but first of all, just put it somewhere else. Beyond that though, it can easily be solved in the same way that GTA 5 does. Pace sections with the audio logs in mind. In GTA 5, they often give you a specific car to use, and begin missions just far enough away that any conversation that's important, which happens in the car, will always finish by the time you arrive at your destination. This is done very intentionally. The exact same thing could have been done here, since the game is so linear. This is one of the perks of linearity, so I'm not sure why it's not used. Moving forward, with as many people complaining about the final boss, I'm not sure why they didn't then bring up the Lycan ambushes as well. I found the repetition of them much more annoying. They effectively reuse the warehouse Lycan ambush set piece 3 times. You never get a chance to genuinely fight them in different situations. Instead, you're expected to do this ambush sequence each time, and they're all exactly the same. It was to the point that I could subconsciously tell when one of these segments would show up just based on the room design I was in. What makes it worse is that it sets you up in the first one to tackle these sequences in the most boring way possible, by starting you huddled in a corner. The game basically hands you the most cowardly, boring way to play the fight on a silver platter, and then asks you to do it 3 times. Most people will probably stay in that corner, realizing how effective it is, and then do it for every ambush, ruining any fun they might have offered. There are a few smaller issues as well, but the last major one to me is replayability. Long-term replayability is about average. Anyone who enjoyed the game can probably continue to enjoy playing it once every few years. But short-term replayability is super low. Why? You can't skip cutscenes. Since I know the Platinum Trophy is an easy grab here, I decided I wanted to get it after beating the game for the first time. And I was immediately turned away from that when I realized I'd have to sit through all the cutscenes again, some of which are around 10 minutes long before you get to play again. Fine the first time, not fine every other time if you're replaying the game over and over. Plus, there are a lot of Gears of War style walking segments where you can't do anything but walk. While walking sections like this can work, it still amazes me that games like Gears 4 and The Order still do it this way. Other moments require waiting for NPCs to get into position before you can continue, meaning not only do you have to wait for them, but they also break your immersion if you go too fast, because they're designed for you to be much slower and to be behind them. None of this is a huge deal on a first playthrough, but it's an enormous problem on subsequent ones. Of course, probably one of the biggest boons to this game comes in the form of its presentation. The graphical presentation here is fantastic, and even 2 years out it's still one of the best looking games there is. This game is a prime example of how style can allow a game to hold up far better than it otherwise would. While I may have criticized the thick visual noise before, I will also concede that it is part of a great visual aesthetic. Character models are detailed, and if you pay attention, you'll notice that animations are so detailed that clipping between clothing items, weapons, etc. is an extremely rare occurrence. Environments are inspired, full of life and organic. Texture work, animation, it's all fantastic. Same goes for the sound design. Guns sound uniquely mechanical in this game. Voice acting is the best of the best. Ambient sounds blend in extraordinarily well with the scenes. It's all top notch. Continuing with this theme, the writing is also really great. Characters feel natural and nuanced. Concepts and ideas are kept vague in the beginning to build intrigue, and then explored and explained without awkward exposition. I found the actual narrative to flow really well, to have worthwhile stakes while still being grounded, easy to follow, and engaging from the base level upwards. It's overall a really well told story with a nice gray area ending. Who's really good? Who's really bad? Nobody, honestly. They all believe they're the good guys, and it's told well enough that the player should be able to empathize with the choices of most everyone on some level. Even though at one point, most everyone is Galahad's enemy. I also like some of the smaller touches a lot. It's cool, for example, that Blacksite and Blackwater are integrated into the story, while also using them to maintain immersion and provide what would normally be pretty gamey mechanics. Not only does Blackwater explain why you can get up after fatal wounds, I believe they even give context to why the Blackwater flask fills back up. As I understand it, Blackwater needs the blood of the owner in some form to be effective. That might actually mean that the vial fills up after you've taken a certain amount of damage. This not only would be an interesting story aesthetic used in gameplay, but it also balances well with the gameplay itself, because it forces the player to at least play well enough that they don't die again in order to fill the vial. Players who play extremely well won't see the vial filled again after they go down until a new chapter, but they don't need it because they're doing so well. And players who tend to get shot a lot and struggle a bit end up gaining more chances to revive as long as they don't end up going down repeatedly. With all of this in mind then, it's a shame that the Order won't likely have a sequel, since it set up a really good potential arc, and it did it slowly throughout the story instead of only sequel baiting at the end. I mean, it did that too, but I felt it earned it. Unfortunately, Sony still has to okay a sequel because Ready at Dawn doesn't own the IP outright. They've expressed a great want to continue, but that's not up to them. Jumping to the gameplay, I felt the actual combat and gunplay was great. It had the perfect amount of accuracy fall off for each weapon, and headshots were satisfying. Still, your basic Order pistol and rifle were so effective that most everything else in the regular arsenal felt inferior. Meanwhile, the science weapons were so rare to find that they didn't impact much of anything, but they all still felt really smooth and enjoyable to shoot. Basic movement is just as precise and buttery as well. The science weapons are actually a really cool idea. Basically, these are much more fantastical weapons, like an electricity arc cannon, or a rifle that shoots thermite. The thermite gun in particular is an interesting idea. You first shoot thermite all over an area, before then firing an igniter which lights it all up. I wish there were more opportunities to use these weapons though, and more places where they had unique uses. The initial reveal of the thermite weapon sees you using it to flush out some enemies from cover, lighting said cover on fire, and then in 2 scripted sequences you use it to clear some metal rubble and to topple a railway above. But these guns are otherwise extremely rare and don't often stay with you for long. You know there's an issue when I didn't even get the trophy for using these weapons to kill 40 enemies in my initial playthrough. Still, they reminded me of Ratchet and Clank and how creative some of them were, and I think they have potential if there's ever to be a sequel. Harder difficulties were also handled well, in that they add enemies and such, rather than just making them bullet sponges or making their hits one-hit kills or whatever. AI still isn't perfect or anything, but it's at least about average. Anyone can find strange little quirks in any game's AI if you poke at it enough. The Order mostly holds up, and adding more enemies is a rather organic way to build the difficulty. And that's the Order 1886. In a lot of ways, the Order is unremarkable, and in a few ways it does indeed fail. But it also does a lot of things right. The lack of any truly magnificent gameplay ideas sewn into the experience, and even the ones that are not being used terribly well, leaves me agreeing with the majority. I think this game is just okay. Unoriginal or not though, the Order is a mostly well-made experience, and I think that should be valued too. Games like the Order or the Gears of War series, they're not bad games because they're lacking in new ideas. They're just missed opportunities. Hey, thanks for watching this video. If you're interested in another one, here's the last one that I uploaded. You can also follow me on Twitter or subscribe by hitting the subscribe button.